German Straft Battalions. Who were they and what were they? The German Straft Battalions were disciplinary and punishment units, also penal units for some of Germany's worst felons and convicted soldiers. The formation of penal units began in 1940, but they had been used pre-war as forced labour and in some cases re-education units to make dissident soldiers' minds more in line with the Nazi political agenda, and by the end of 1945 some 50,000 men had served in a form of penal unit. In these units all designation was removed, and they were only allowed to wear the red triangle, a symbol of these Straft Battalions, as they were now stripped of any honour they had and lost the privilege of citizenship. They also in most cases fell under the authority of the German military police, and they made life in these Straft units unpleasant and strict, as this was a punishment after all. The units tended to be poorly supplied and equipped, and most of their assignments were mainly labour duties, such as clearing of obstacles or mines, suppression of partisans, and dealing with nuisance civilians. This meant they had little combat experience, and when they met actual hostile military units, they didn't tend to fare well in most engagements. But refusal of orders in these battalions were met with summary execution, as mercy was in short supply for these men. Then I'm sure you're asking yourself, why would anyone ever accept the offer to serve in such battalions? Well, there were several main reasons. Firstly, soldiers who had committed crimes or failed in their duty could regain their honour and be returned to their original military units after they had served their term or achieved exceptional feats on the battlefield. Secondly, convicts from civilian jails were promised to have their sentences commuted and to be released with a blank slate after the war. And thirdly, some men would prefer to fight on the battlefield than rot in a cell until death. The penal units did vary much in their intended roles and who were allowed to serve in each of these units. For instance, the Bürgerhangsrung Battalion 500, which was formed in early 1940 for rehabilitation of small-time military offenders, did not allow hardened criminals in such as murderers or repeat felons. This battalion was also unique in that its leadership was not the military police, but standard military officers and NCOs in good standing, whose job was to encourage these low-level offenders to improve and achieve greatness for the Reich. This meant morale was very high for a penal unit, and the men were eager to serve their time and return to their original units. This battalion served mainly on the Eastern Front in places such as Ukraine, as well as Grozino and Sivyavino, and they fought hard with their limited support and equipment and took high casualties, but were very effective for a penal battalion. Another Straft battalion with a bit of a different agenda was the Bürgerhangsrungstrupp 999, which came to be known as the Light Africa Division 999. It was formed in 1942 and totaled 28,000 men, mainly out of civilian prisoners who had previously been deemed unfit for military service, and a third of the unit was political subversives and dissidents. The unit first served in North Africa and later Greece and the Eastern Front. One point to note was that while serving in North Africa, hundreds of the political dissidents in its ranks took the first opportunity to surrender to Allied forces, as they had no love for Nazi Germany and did not wish to fight for them, which makes quite a lot of sense, being as they were political prisoners. And finally, we come to the worst of the worst, the dreaded 36th Grenadier Division of the Waffen-SS, also known as the Dirlewanger Brigade. They were formed in 1940 with a very simple setup, being made up of convicted, non-trap using poachers who were the perfect basis for an anti-partisan unit because of their excellent marksmanship and hunting skills. Their ranks quickly swelled to around 4,000 men, but now they were comprised of murderers, rapists and thieves, the true scum of Germany. But who would lead such a unit? The perfect man for a job, an absolutely vile individual himself, Oskar Dirlewanger, who was a convicted child rapist and was able to use his connections in the Nazi Party and his previous military success to become commander of this Straft battalion. The dreaded 36 served in Poland, Belarus and on the Eastern Front, where the rampage began. They were known for raping and torturing civilians and being absolutely brutal on anti-partisan duties. The unit was actually hated by all of the military and SS units, and many commanders tried to have them shut down, but Oscar's connections to high-ranking Nazis kept him and his men in the field. When sent to the Eastern Front due to their lack of real combat experience, they took heavy losses when fighting the Red Army, and eventually were pushed back, and they were reinforced and redeployed to put down the Warsaw Uprising, where the most brutal atrocity began. in which they shot and beat and bayoneted 500 children and teenagers and were encouraged by the commander to beat them to death to save ammo. After such an atrocity, they were called back to Germany to defend against the incoming Red Army, where justice finally was served. When after many of them deserted, the unit was massacred by Russian forces. Oscar was wounded and fled like a coward, but was captured a month later, but never made it to trial, as he was beaten to death by his Polish prison guards, most likely as they knew what crimes he had committed. The Straft Battalions contained everything from soldiers trying to regain honour to the worst offenders to cause chaos. But remember, it was far more effective to use them as warriors in a war than it was to keep them in jail cells. I hope this video has granted you some useful info about these units and how they worked. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and leave a comment. I wish you a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching.